All right, so this week we have a grand interview. Um, Very excited about this. I actually talked with these guys before, way back in the day when I used to do film club. Nathan Baesel and David J Stieves. I talked with them way long time ago. These are the guys behind the Mask, the Rise of Leslie Vernon. I think one of the funnest cult horror movies of the last 20 years. Um, yeah, it was. I was able to get them to come together. Mostly David. We talked to. Nathan was kind of like in the middle of something. So, but he popped in, talked to us a little bit at the beginning. He was having some tech difficulties, some internet issues, and there was a couple times David did too as well. But eventually, it starts to clean up a little bit as the interview goes on. So we apologize. For that, I didn't want to try to sit here and try to edit it all together and make it neat because it kind of goes in and out, and it would be really hard to make it seamless. So I figured, just to warn you that there is a little bit of jumbleness, a couple interruptions, but I think we don't let it fumble too much, so it flows nice. But yeah, Andrew, excited about that interview? Yes.
Yeah, it was a very interesting interview, especially the second half. We get into all kinds of different other topical things, dealing with the horror genre and dealing with kind of the modern conception of the horror genre, as well as classic influences that went into Behind the Mask. For those of you who haven't seen Behind the Mask yet, um, do so any way you can. I mean, it is available on Blu-ray through Scream Factory. That's probably the best way to see it. Since this is a physical media centric podcast, I might as well plug
Yes.
that in. It does have great special features, as well as great picture and sound quality. Came out in 2006, which still boggles my mind because that feels like so long ago in a very distant past. Which this film feels like it was also ahead of its time, so probably appropriately that it came out during that 2000s era. I feel like we live in such a meta world now, and this thing was doing meta things at that time. So it was nice to kind of see where the mind was when it went into the writing of this and the concepts behind it. So yeah, really awesome interview.
Yeah, and of course we were also talking with him about his new short that links to the Leslie Vernon universe. Wait for it, which you can't see it yet, but hopefully at some point in the near future you will. But with all that said, here is our interview with David J Stieve, writer, director, and actor Nathan Baesel of Behind the Mask, Rise of Leslie Vernon. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Chasing Labels once again. And once again, we're going to have another great pair of guests this week. Andrew, it's Halloween time. And
it is indeed.
We thought a lot about this. And fortunate enough for me, I actually had connections with these guys before, way back in the day, many years ago, with the old show I used to do. And so I was like, for the Halloween, we got to do something cool. We got to get people connected to the horror community excited. And I was like, this is perfect. I haven't talked to these guys in a long time. And to me, this is one of my favorite cult horror films. It Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, to me, really, kind of brought us back to that kind of like what Scream did, kind of self-referential kind of thing with horror, but also created a great new character in the horror genre with, of course, Leslie Vernon.
Right.
And we have here today none other than the writer, producer, and also the star of that film, Mr. Leslie Vernon himself. We have David J Stieve and Nathan Baesel. What's up, guys?
Hey, boys.
Hello.
Hey.
So
they let us out of the box. They had us trapped in.
Kind of like the puzzle box in Hellraiser.
We hold back on some of the, we gotta hold them back, and then we finally break. We haven't done an interview in months, so we
may
finally
be a little rusty.
Maybe a little rusty, but we're glad to have you guys here. Thank you for taking the time, and just on a personal level, how's everything going? How's the day to day?
Better now. I mean, I don't know how much you want to jump into that right now, but 154 days of a strike is over, so that was great news.
I was gonna say it's great that finally a deal got worked out, and now work can
resume.
There we are.
Well,
Nathan's back with us.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I think, I can jump in and say I'm incredibly appreciative and grateful for what the WGA negotiating committee and, you know, tens of thousands of members holding the line for that long. I'm incredibly proud that we fought a fight that needed to be fought, and I'm grateful for that. But that doesn't really change anything until SAG-AFTRA gets their deal done. So I stand in solidarity with them, and that's member Nathan's a union member of. So
yeah,
we're there. We're getting there. It's not quite done yet, but I am looking forward to. Yeah, as you said, I'm looking forward to getting back to work.
Awesome, Nathan. How's it going over there, man? Like I was saying before, you're looking sweaty. Look like you're outside, loving the sun.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the internet situation. Is this? Come on.
Oh no,
it's okay. But well, until we get that figured out,
I don't know. I don't know what's wrong. I don't.
Independent filmmaking.
Yeah, in a way,
this,
it goes with the whole theme of the show, with the kind of rudimentary independent filmmaking. It feels like we're dealing with 2006 technology right now, with the way in which Behind the Mask was made. I did not realize that the movie had come out in 2006, which seems like several lifetimes ago. Eons.
But of course, we're also here to talk about your short. Wait for it, which you wrote, directed, produced. You've been working on it for a long time. I actually, of course, I this is how I blackmailed you into coming on here, was because I did give you some money for that short, and then of course COVID happened and a lot of things happened. It takes a long time to make any film of any length, and then finally it got finished, and I was like, I was supposed to get a chance to see it. I want to see it, and then.
So you just strong-armed them because of the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, we tried.
I mean, standing outside my bedroom window was a little much, Steven, but I mean,
I had I needed a reason to use that money I got from a bonus from work, and I used it to get a plane ticket. Came out to you. I was like, he's gonna love this because he loves serial killer stuff.
Yeah,
so I could, just be outside his window.
Yeah. No, maybe rethink that next time. But no,
my wife didn't like that I spent that money. Yeah. But
it was an incredibly long I mean, that's the first time I've ever directed. I mean, I've been a screenwriter my whole life, and I don't know that I need to get back behind the camera, if I'm being really honest. I'm glad I did it. It was an incredible learning experience, and being able to see that side of it. It was a conversation that I had with I had gotten lucky enough to get a development meeting with Ryan Turek at Blumhouse, and in the course of that conversation, he said, you need to, I mentioned I had an idea for a horror short film, but I didn't know how to direct. And he just sort of stopped the conversations, like, you absolutely need to do that.
Yeah.
And I was sort of taken aback. And he's like, you need to know what it's like as a writer to, write down, exterior spaceship, and then to understand what that means when you're, Tuesday morning, 4:30 in the morning, and you have to figure that out. And you're on a set, like, you need to understand how what you write on the page translates to the work that a whole bunch of other people are going to have to do. Yeah. And it's some of the best advice I've ever gotten. Yeah. But having said that, I'm glad I did it. I guess I'd like to learn more, but the whole experience of Wait For It was just really, I knew that I needed to add that tool to my toolbox. And of course I wanted to have it to be sort of relevant. So to try to find a way to tie it into the Leslie Vernon universe, which, to date, that's my calling card, right? That's what I hang my hat on as a filmmaker, and my career in the industry is hinged on Leslie Vernon. So they all kind of folded together. Everything came together well. It took a really, really long time. And so I apologize. You didn't get your reward billings, but just relax, Jesus.
We're here now. It's fine. It's fine. I was pissed for so many years. I was so pissed. No, man, I wanted to definitely put whatever I could at the time towards that project, because I am such a fan of Leslie Vernon, and I know, as somebody that's I've done some amateur filmmaking, how hard it is to just to get a group of people together, and of course you want to pay them people. You want to give them what they're worth, and not, it's fun to get a group of people together just to do something for free. Yeah. A lot of people could do that, but if you really want to get the talent and do it the right way, you need to be able to pay people. And I get it. It takes a long time to get that money. I mean, Leslie Vernon was made for a very, small amount of money, but it looks fantastic. And yeah, please, before we get too deep into Leslie Vernon canon here, I do want to start out with just like the kind of the basic love of movies. Like, was it where did it start for you guys? And it looks like Nathan might be with us now. I think he was mountain biking or something. He was going through, so I don't know. He dropped his who knows. But let's start just at a basic level. I want to know where the beginning of like the pathway to where you are now started, David.
Man, I think that the earliest I remember really loving movies was the first job, the real job I got living in Wisconsin. I worked at a Pick and Save video store, which Pick and Save was a local grocery store chain in the Midwest. And they opened a video store for VHS and beta tapes. And I got this job, and it was the coolest job in town because it was brand new and I was working with movies. And I think that was being in that video store and being surrounded by all of those movie titles. That was the first time I was like, wow, this place is a portal. It's like a library. This is like, there's avenues to other places in the universe and your imagination here. And I remember thinking that, I was probably super high, but still it was relevant. No, but I think
no, you don't have to take it back. We
understand.
It was right.
It was a different time.
It was truth. It's fine. Oh, did we lose David now? Oh, now see, look what you did, Nathan. You rubbed off on.
So I think you transferred over to him now.
All right, so
I guess it's as good a transition as ever to get over to Nathan.
Now that you're here with us, please, Nathan, tell us a little bit about your backgrounds for people that don't know about what Nathan Baesel does when he's not, murdering people.
Which is most of the time.
Yes.
I teach acting now, but I trained in acting for a long time, a lot of different institutions, and had a good career out acting, doing things. I'm not done acting, but yeah, did some good film, TV, and theater work, and I've been teaching for the last seriously for the last 10 years, and so that's my thing now until Behind the Mask sequel comes around. Then I'll just keep doing my same old hustle.
Well, we're really hoping for it. We'll get more into that later, but that's great. I see that. I saw most of what you were doing now was other than teaching, was that you're doing some post-production kind of work?
I do a lot of post-production stuff with Original Productions. We do reality TV programming.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been helping me pay the bills so that I can do what I love doing.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm gonna jump in there though and say that I had the privilege of taking Nathan's class. I've tried it a couple times, and I'm not an actor any more than I am a director, but it's he's selling himself a little bit short on his passion for, his ability to crack into that with a bunch of strangers is pretty phenomenal to watch. And I think that's something I've always really enjoyed about Nathan as a performer, not just as a friend, but as a performer and an artist, is that he is pretty humble about a considerable skill set that he has. And it's pretty cool to watch him teach, because I can see flashes of that performer coming out in him. So I'm doing everything I can to get him back in front of a camera as soon as possible.
Well, of course he's I know he gets made fun of for this, but he's Juilliard. He's a Juilliard trained actor.
Yeah.
It must look good on a resume.
It looks good.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I know, right? How when it comes to, how much do you get your students talking to you about Leslie Vernon? Do they ask you a lot of questions about it?
No, I don't tend to talk about it too much.
Yeah.
I don't tend to talk about me too much.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I enjoy instruction, is because I don't have to deal with any of this.
Yeah.
I get to just deal with that.
Yeah. I got you. But back to David, before your computer interrupted you, your video store, Hi David Video Store.
Right. Then I when I'm in college, I worked in an Orpheum movie theater.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful old theater. And at that point, I was a creative writing major, and I thought I was going to be a novelist, and I was going to write the next great American novel. And I was in the theater one night. I think I was watching like Silence of the Lambs or something, and I just had this gobsmacked moment where I'm like, God, your whole life you've been around movies. You're obsessed with movies. Why aren't you trying to write a script? And I had sort of wasted most of my college years at that point. I didn't go into film school. I didn't go in that route. So I gotten an English creative writing degree, and had to then go back almost post-college and retrain myself how to write a screenplay, because it's a completely different set of muscle. And I came to it late, but once I started, writing screenplays, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this is it. I mean, ultimately it's about affecting an emotional response in people. And I firmly believe that film does that. At least if it's done right, and you get it out, and fitting that we're on this podcast, because I still think having a bunch of people watch a movie together is the best possible way to do that. It comes back to theater of old, and I think a shared experience, and if you can evoke an emotional response and get a thematic sort of message out there. And if you can do that to 50 or 100 or 1,000 people at a time in a collective experience, it even amplifies that experience for all of them. And I think that does two things. It affects the individual, but I also think it sort of, you walk out of an experience like that a little bit more bonded to the 100 people you were in there with. And I think that's something we kind of sorely need in our culture right now.
I can't agree more. We've had that same sentiment ourselves with many of our guests. That the shared experience is something we need to continue to prop up, whether it's the theater, the movies in the theater, or, theater acting, that's all that stuff. I think you need to be, there's something different about it being there with a group of people, and it, it's contagious. The emotion from the film, if you can just get people to pay attention, to drop their phones, to focus,
the
that's
biggest
the hardest
backdrop,
part.
I guess, to any kind of live event, whether it be theatrical in the theater, whether it be at the cinema, whether it be sporting events,
music too. I mean,
music
everybody's got their phone out recording
Yeah.
the thing, and I'm like,
I've seen things at music performances where people are not really paying attention to the performers. They're kind of just there living in their own little world and stuff. I mean, and it's something I think a lot of us, or a lot of the older generations, really, their love of movies started with going to the movies, going to the cinema, having that living experience, that life experience, really, and building those memories. You know what I mean? And then passing on those memories to other people, other generations. The magic of movies, if I could glorify it in some type of sentimental way.
It's so sentimental, guys.
It's too sentimental, really.
Shut up.
I should really shut up.
Spielberg over here.
I know. Very maudlin.
Andrew, to your point, though, I always wonder when I go to a concert and I see like the crowd of people holding their phone up, and they're watching the concert through their 2-inch screen, recording it. And I'm like, it's happening live right over there.
It's right there.
It's right in front of
But
you.
I always wonder, like, who of those people actually sits down and then watches the concert again on their phone?
It looks like shit. It's going to look like shit.
Why would
it's
you do
dark.
it? They just do it to post a picture.
Yeah.
And it's like you're cheating yourself at the experience just to get a follower somewhere down the line.
It's cool to capture.
Kids get off my lawn, but God, that drives me nuts. It's like it's happening right in front of you.
That said, Stevie, you've got a short film out that you want people to use their phones to acquire and to watch, right?
Wait a second.
Should I wait for it?
Don't shit on them too much.
Yeah, you may need them.
I see what you did there. I mean, if they want to wait for it on their phone, that's fine. It's 13 minutes long and it's only this big, but
I still think they should try to watch it at least on their TV screens.
Yeah, well, that's
bigger.
interesting, because we always talk about I mean, Steve and I have talked about what is the artist's intent, what is director's intent. You know, a lot of directors recently have come out against streaming. They've come out against people watching movies, like you said, on their phones and stuff. And it's kind of like they didn't make the movies to be kind of watched in that way. You know, did you kind of think about how your movie was going to be watched in kind of a modern day way? You know, whether it be through streaming, because I know you're also taking the movie around to different film festivals and stuff. Is that the intended way for we to be watching this?
I mean, I honestly, I gotta confess, I didn't think that through enough when I started this. Streaming wasn't the end all be all, believe it or not. I mean, I started this idea back in like 2015. That's how long it takes even just to do a short film. And none of this would be happening. First shout out I get to make it to Chris Jarowski, who's one of my executive producers. Chris has done all of the work to get this thing into festivals. Once it was done, you know, it was a learning exercise for me, and I tapped Nathan because I thought that would help get more people's eyeballs on it, but I didn't have a clue how to do that. And then Chris kind of stepped in and said, look, you know, I should back up. By the time I got it done, you know, Frankie Guerrero, my DP, made me look great. And Craig Updike, my editor, made me look even better because he fixed the thing in post, and called in all the favors. And it's such a collaborative process. And you guys have heard that a million times, but I didn't do shit. I mean, I had the idea, and I got a bunch of people
talking with this dude who was for years just you know, wrapping himself over the shoulders with the fact that he wasn't, you know, moving forward. He wasn't in action, this and that. And then he made a film. He'd never made a film before. He made a film because that's what everybody does, right? They just make a film. And then he went through the entire process from conception to execution to fine tuning and cutting. I mean, that's, for me, it doesn't even matter if the product ends up good. It's Herculean to go through that process, and he took it on and did it and ended up with a result that was, I think, really awesome.
Yeah, I can agree. Yeah, I mean, and people could look at the fact that it's only 14 minutes. I'm telling you, it takes a big machine, which is the film studios that are out there, Warner Brothers, to make these 2-hour. It's a machine. When you're talking about this size of a movie, and you only have a very minute amount of people working on it, that's why it takes so long to make such a small, because it's hard to make a movie. It's not easy to make any movie, and no matter how small it is, and to make it as well crafted as yours was, it's a miracle. It's a miracle anytime anything's made that well, because I have to agree. It's even for, you know, as much as you want to take it off yourself that they made you look good, the editors, that, you know, but you had a vision. The visions always starts with the director, and then you collaborated, which is the whole thing.
Well, the vision starts with the writer. I got to be a little territorial.
Well, you're the same one in the same, so okay, fine. But
you had multiple hats on.
Yes, you did. I remember the end of the credits, and then it said writer, producer, director. I feel like you wanted to add a few more things in there, but you didn't. And then you were like, I can't act in it too. So,
well, I mean, you are.
You were trying to M. Night Shyamalan it. I get it.
Well, I'm just saying, you are up there with many greats who did that. You know what I mean? Did that, you know, took on the multiple roles of making movies, you know, being writing, directing, and producing. There are 3 different things, and they're all have different responsibilities, different burdens, different complications, I assume. And yet it's a tough thing to do.
I know we're building you up really high, but
I want to say that I do want to answer your question, Andrew, which is I didn't really know where it would end up. I didn't know who would see it. It was, for me, it was a vanity project. It was an exercise like, can I do this? What is this like? Yeah. What happens? And it absolutely has made me a better screenwriter. Working with Nathan in his acting class has made me a better screenwriter. It's just you know, it was a labor of love, and the fact that it's going to get out there and be seen by anyone, I think, is that's just icing on the cake. And I'm glad it's being well received, and you know, I'm incredibly proud of all the work that everybody else did to help me get it here, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, working with Nathan in his acting classes, was that done specifically so you could get to know how to work with actors to make this movie, or was that just something you had done out of curiosity?
No, he strong-armed me into doing it.
I need
You make them pay? Did you make them pay for it?
I don't think I made you pay. Maybe I did make you pay. I probably made you pay.
Yeah.
Guys, I got to jump off.
Okay.
I'm gonna join my group, but it's good to see you all, and
Thank you.
love you, Stevie.
All right, brother.
All
Talk to
right,
you soon.
guys.
See you
Thanks,
in
Nathan, for
Sacramento.
taking the
See you
time.
in Sacramento.
Those aren't pillows.
All right, man.
So
Have a good one.
Nathan and I are going to Sinister Creature Con.
Yeah.
Plug alert. And it's so cool. Whenever I get to appear with Nathan, I mean, nobody comes to see the screenwriter, but Nathan and Angela are both going to be at Sinister Creature Con on October 22nd, I think. And
Yeah.
so Tim, the organizer, found an extra chair for me. So I'm going to get to go up and sit and talk shop and talk to fans with Nathan and Angela and ride their coattails. And I can't wait. I'm sorry you couldn't stick around longer because that guy
Oh, it's okay.
Oh no, that's fine. It was very
No,
good to meet him in general.
You're the man behind all of this stuff, man. You're the one that helped conceive this whole idea. So, you're definitely the guy we want to talk to. So, of course, we want to get a little bit into Leslie Vernon itself, but wait for it. Of course, you've wanted to make a sequel to Behind the Mask for a while. And there is a comic book. If nobody's aware of this, I didn't get my hands on it. I always wanted to get my hands on it, but I know there's a comic book before the Mask that kind of gives you a little bit of what the sequel could have been. Tell everybody about that.
In the lore of it, I mean, so we worked on the sequel almost immediately because we, even though Behind the Mask didn't do well commercially, we got a sense pretty quickly that the fan base was starting to respond to it, and that has carried through for all this time. And I always say every chance I get, none of this would be happening. I wouldn't be here talking to you guys without the fan base. This thing got no help, no push, no advertising, no nothing, and it found its legs in years 3, 5, 7, 12, 15. And the fans have never given up on Leslie Vernon. And none of this would be happening without them. But even in the immediate aftermath of that, Scott Glosserman, the director, and I knew like, okay, we got to, there's more to tell. And so I wrote a sequel. We couldn't get the funding for it, which is incredibly frustrating. And we just ended up like, we got to get it out there. Like Scott, I think Glosserman got to a point where it's like, we're just sitting on this. This is no good. It's on your hard drive. It's on my hard drive. Let's get it out there as canon, and we'll go from there. Like, we got to do something to keep the drumbeat going. And it ended up being the graphic novel, and Nathan Thomas Milner, who did the artwork, is fantastic. And I always say, if you don't know his artwork, oh man, look, get to know that guy, because his art, his horror fan art is just next level stuff. And so to get him to do the graphic novel was absolutely a coup. So the point of all that is we couldn't get the movie made, but we didn't want to give up on it. So we found a way to get it is a sequel. It's called Before the Mask: The Return of Leslie Vernon, which is of course itself a deconstructive play on sequels, prequels, remakes, right? It's sort of all of them rolled into one. And then that story itself, there's sort of a meta movie within a movie, sort of self-referential, kind of a Scream sort of a nod. So, we did everything we wanted to do with the sequel. And the graphic novel, Nathan did his best, but you can only do so much with, 6 issues and panels. And I'm bummed that this film itself, the full weight and breadth of it, never got made. But that ship has sailed, and people always ask, well, what if you do? Why can't you do it now? Why can't you do it now? It's too dated. Nathan and Angela have aged out of it. Scott Wilson's passed away. Yeah. Robert Englund's not, necessarily where he used to be. So it would be really pretty ridiculous to try to, get a bunch of people to pretend it was 2010.
Yeah.
So the next level then is, well, if we're going to do another Leslie Vernon story, it would have to be contemporary.
Yeah.
And that's the goal now. And that's what drives me. And it's something I desperately want to bring to reality, and Nathan's down for it, and everybody's back and everybody's in. It's a matter of the business side of it.
Yeah.
Which is always the most complicated part. For those of you like listening, and for those of you watching this in the future, the business side of filmmaking is like a whole other but like bag of stuff. You know what I mean? We don't talk about it a lot, and Steve and I are no experts on it, but you hear about certain things all the time and press releases and all kinds of stuff, but it's so much more in depth than that. Even on a project as small as a sequel to a a low budgeted horror film from the 2000s is probably so,
A-
like you said, so complex to
And
try to
what's
get off
funny
the
is
ground.
I see
Really,
so many crappy horror movies get sequels all the time.
well,
And it's like,
it's really kind of I'm pretty sure luck has a lot to do with it nowadays and stuff, and just you find the right financing, you find the right people, you make the right
Yeah.
calls, you do all the stuff. I mean, but and then of course, as you said, David, it's time is also a factor too. It's a movie that came out in 2006. What is the audience for it now compared to back then? Completely different, obviously,
Right.
but
But
also
you know,
like
but
the whole
I,
game is different in terms of movie marketing and movie selling and all that kind of stuff.
that's true. I think
Mm.
that the two things that lead to mind there are, one, the fan base has never deserted us. So I think that, if we're lucky enough to get a third story off the ground, I think it's going to be very well received. I think it'll be better received than the first movie, because now the fans have done all of the work for the past 15 years to build that fan base. But to your point, Andrew, I think what I struggle with, having lived in Hollywood for 2 decades, is that the system is broken. And forgive me for getting on my soapbox here for a minute, but I'm on the front row. I'm in the trenches on this, and I see it. And it's film studios used to be about making films. Television studios used to be about making TV shows, and they cared and they paid attention to what they were creating. They mattered. They watched the movies they were making. Going way back, Samuel Goldwyn wanted to make sure that the movies that were being put out were good. You know what I mean? Like NBC used to want good TV shows, and it's become so corporate, and they've been absorbed by these corporations that are their retail, their real estate, their amusement parks, their music. They're more than that, though. They're information harvesting. They're just these multi-billion-dollar entities. And sure, they have a film division or a television division, but they don't. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. They don't care about whether the movie or the show is good. They don't. They don't even watch this.
lost him again. Oh,
Oh,
there
Am
we
I
go.
back?
Yeah, you're back.
back.
You're back. Yeah, go ahead.
We cut you off
See?
mid-sentence.
Yeah.
Jeez.
See, Facebook's trying to shut me down. But I'll try to come down off the soapbox. But it's become such a business that they don't even really watch or care about whether the movie is good or the show is good. They care about the metrics.
Yeah.
And if a certain number of people, if a certain percentage of their subscriber base has watched a movie, then they like it. And if it's only getting 13% of their viewership and they're only watching 47% all the way through it, then that's bad content. We need to get that out of our pipeline. They're not even watching their shows. They're not even watching their movies. And when you dehumanize it like that, it becomes incredibly difficult to say, yeah, I know Behind the Mask didn't do well, but you have an immense fan base and people love Leslie Vernon. They love Nathan's performance. They want to see more of this guy. But the metrics aren't there, so they can't see past that, so they won't finance it.
Yeah, it kind of reflects a little bit on I'm a baseball guy, and it makes me think about how people feel about looking at data for baseball. They'll a lot of teams these years around now, they're all very all about like looking at the data and saying, okay, well, this player should play when this pitcher's pitching because he's better against lefties. It's like you get so into like the statistics and that you're not looking at the human element of the game anymore. Or,
right.
In this case, the human element of people that want to watch certain types of movies. Like you're only looking at what made, like money is not the factor in what makes a good movie. Like a lot of good movies are flops. I mean,
and what we're seeing now, I think really out, because of the writer's strike, because of the actor's strike, we're learning a lot more about how the overall mind hive works for the corporations, as David is saying, and how they view things, how they view their content, how they view their writers and actors. They kind of
they
don't
want
view them as
to
humans.
replace them with robots.
Yeah, they want to replace them with AI. Really, if they could, if it was cheaper, they would do it.
It's humanizing. And
Yeah.
I've made the analogy recently, and this is exactly. Thank you for giving me the venue for this.
No,
The system as it exists right now, they treat. I am what's called a content creator. What Nathan does is the content, and they put it out in a pipeline to their consumers. So I'm like a soft serve ice cream machine, and they go in and they pull the handle and they get the soft serve ice cream, which is Nathan, and they put it in their pipeline and they pump it down the trough for you guys to feed on. And that's their trough. And you pay $15 a month to have your mouth in that trough. If you don't like it, that's too bad. If it does great, they'll pump more of it. If it does bad, they take that content out of their pipeline. And so it's all dehumanizing. Nowhere in there. I'm not a content creator. Nathan's not content. My film isn't in a pipeline, and you guys aren't consumers. I'm a filmmaker. Nathan's an actor. You guys are trying to be entertained by art. You're watching film, and it's so dehumanized because none of that translates to a spreadsheet anymore. And these corporations, their film and entertainment division or the television division is a loss leader. They don't even need to make money on their film or television department. They can carry it through the rest of their, I don't know. I'm not privy to what, NBC Universal's portfolio is, but I can tell you Amazon's not too concerned if their original programming doesn't make money. Like it sucks that their department is losing money, but Amazon's making billions in profit. And it's just, that's what I said earlier on, is it used to be film studios made films, television networks made TV shows. So they cared about whether the project was good, and you cared about whether the people making it were good, and you had a relationship with them. And that has unfortunately just been totally dehumanized. I think people, because of the strikes, are starting to see that and starting to understand that I'm not a content creator. You guys aren't pigs at a trough. There's human beings trying to make art that affects an emotional response in human beings. And it's how we connect with each other. And that's been lost.
Yeah. Even on a level of us as people that, are watching film, on just our level, sometimes you find it hard to find other people to just talk about movies with, because people look at people that have an opinion about movies as people that are, they're too judgy. They're too, like this or that. Like, it's like, that's the type of people you're trying to reach, is people that actually want to have an opinion about the thing that you're, and not, they don't just watch it and say, oh, that was good. Oh, that was, that sucked.
That does say a lot about where we are now as a entertainment consuming body of people, or culture, really, where like how do we consume entertainment is changing vastly over the last several years. It was changing slowly, and then all of a sudden got kicked into high gear because of the way the world went and the way the world is now as a result of all that. So it's like, and just like the generations change, because people consume things through different forms of technology now.
The more we've made
all
this stuff
stuff.
convenient, the more it's made people complacent about what they're watching. They don't look at the people that are behind it. People don't care about directors anymore. Very few get looked at as ways of getting people to watch stuff. Like Christopher Nolan is one that sells himself, as somebody you should come watch, a Tarantino.
Yeah. When you refer to their films, you're like, I'm going to go see the new Nolan movie. I'm going to see the new Tarantino movie. I mean,
but that's like the very small.
Some actors still have that cachet, I say,
I don't know, Andrew. I think I'm terrified for the actors, because I think we're entering a phase now where I don't think there are going to be TV stars anymore. I don't think you're going to have anybody that is a worldwide, or even a national TV star. There's too many shows. And if you're not already on a franchise, I just don't think anything is going to reach that tipping point. Like, like Pedro Pascal, maybe he's going to be like the last sort of guy who's a TV star.
And that's because he's on so many things. So his visibility is so high that you recognize him constantly. You know what I mean?
But that's what I'm saying. There's not going to be any more venues for. I don't think there's going to be more breakout TV shows that everyone's going to like. Who are name me the top 3 actors from Game of Thrones, and then name me the last project that they did. You can't do it, because one of them, you probably can't think of all 3 of their names, and then number 2, you don't know what the last thing they did is. And I think that it's eroding the art of acting. I don't know. We're getting off on a tangent there.
I mean, that's very interesting, because I find TV, the history of TV and the way it's evolved is somewhat different, but close to movies, but also, but unique in and of itself, because you do see that where, some people will be very popular in the moment, and then just once the show ends, disappear. You know what I mean? It happens all the time. It happens with some movies. There are some actors and actresses who they'll do 2, 3, maybe 4 movies in 1 year, and then you won't see them for 5 years. It happens. That happens there as well.
I'm
So
just worried. I'm just worried we won't have that everyone has seen things. I think it's just becoming so fragmented, and then people like Chris Pratt. Sure, I love Chris Pratt, but if it wasn't for Guardians of the Galaxy, like would he be as big as he is? You know what I mean? And that's just because he's in a franchise that's been promoted so heavily. Like I don't know. I've never met him, but I bet you he doesn't want to be just known for that. There's probably and I'm sure, and I know he does other things, but he's one of the last big movie stars, like not pre-streaming. You know what I mean? Like I think he's the biggest streaming era movie star right now. For example,
probably Dwayne Johnson too. Dwayne Johnson's kind of made his way.
No, because he existed before streaming. He was wrestling.
Right.
He was huge movies. He established himself pre-streaming. I'm talking about somebody like the streaming era, Guardians of the Galaxy. Like Chris Pratt is somebody that I immediately lean to because he's somebody that's out there in that streaming context. That's one of the last stars that everyone's watched those movies.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, it's muddy, man. It's I think a lot of what it is like you said earlier, like too much. There's just too much coming out.
Oh yeah,
that all the good stuff gets lost.
Not only that, but what is interesting, kind of to tie it back into the strikes and whatnot. Once obviously the WGA strike is now over. Once the SAG strike is over, and all these productions that were kind of stopped or stalled or delayed, once they get put back into production and start ramping up, there's going to be a massive just dump of content to catch up with all of this. You know what I mean? And there's going to be even more content for us to consume. And the way in which we consume it now, the whole binge model of it all is fascinating, because this happens to me. I'll binge a show, in a couple of days, and then by the time the next season comes around, I won't remember what happened because the next season won't come for another 2 years. And I watched the first one so quickly and so fast that the content just doesn't stay with me.
Yeah, it's short-term memory, right?
It's short-term memory. Like, you live in the moment and then move on to something else.
Right. And then those characters don't impress like the way, I'll date myself, but Han Solo like has been with me my whole life. You know what I mean? And like I don't see a character like that. If I have to binge 3 seasons in 3 weeks, you're right, and then wait 2 more years, like I'm not going to care about that character anymore. I haven't spent. It's like a one night stand. It really is. Like we're having one night stands with these shows, and we're not forming a long-term relationship. Or you do have to wait every week, or you do have to wait for a couple of months or the next year for the next season to come out. I don't know.
But I do want to circle. Let's go back over to Wait for It, because like you said, this is something that this came out of just needing to update where you were moving forward when it came to Leslie Vernon's story. So please to sell people on now, of course, we don't know when this is going to hit the public yet. I don't know if there's anything in the works with that yet, but it is going around to festivals. But to sell people on the idea of this short film, please pitch it to everybody.
It's a love note. I call it an Easter basket because it's filled with Easter eggs for slasher type films. I mean, it's really like a pause and examine it type of a thing. But and I don't want to oversell this as a Leslie Vernon project.
Sure.
It's in that universe, but it is. I don't want anybody to be disappointed. Like, Leslie's not stomping and killing through this film. This is an examination of another. Survivor girl, which in Leslie's world, those are final girls. Yes. But in the context of the universe of Leslie Vernon stories, final girl is a real world connotation from a book written by Carol Clover, Men, Women, and Chainsaws. And final girls become, an archetype of modern slasher horror in our real world. Well, in Leslie's world, those movies don't exist. In Leslie's world, Michael Myers is a real guy. Jason Voorhees is a real guy. So Carol Clover never wrote that book. So I wanted to make it Survivor Girl instead of Final Girl, just to sort of do a little bit of a meta shift. So the short film Wait For It, therefore, is really an exploration of one of the things I love the most about horror is I always sort of feel a little disappointed when we get to the end of a slasher film and the killer is just stalking around and you can see him and it's out and it's just a fight and they end up in a fist fight. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy it, but I'm always a little disappointed. Like, oh man, he's out. You can see him. I've always enjoyed the build up. I've always enjoyed the waiting for it. Like, is he gonna pop up? Is he not? What's happening? The world is shifting from normal to something's up. Like that's the moment in horror that I've always enjoyed.
Yeah.
So I wanted to explore a moment where there was a survivor girl who had survived an attack and was now trying to live her life. And it wasn't Friday the 13th. It wasn't a year later. It was just like some Tuesday in November, right? And so she's trying to sort of live her life and not be too PTSD about it, but always have this like, man, I know that guy's going to come back. I know he is. Is it now? Am I imagining this? Is this in my head? Is there really somebody there? And I just wanted to explore those moments and get a pack of as many of them as I could into a short film.
Yeah, I think it's a great, as a lot of people would consider like a short film. It's kind of, and for the fact that you're a first time director, a great exercise in exploring them ideas. You stuff so much into just 14 minutes, to kind of give little winks here and there of things that we see in other films or situations that we've seen in other films, but then they kind of they resolve in a different way, and they you kind of turn it on its head in some spots. And I thought that was really clever, and I thought really is like a good little appetizer for what could be something more that we could get. So
yeah, and it's the common experience, right? I mean, that's as a filmmaker or a screenwriter, you're trying to figure out a way to get an emotional response from people. That's why we do this. That's why we tell stories. Yeah. And so I like the idea that those moments, like watching it at a theater, is great because people laugh at the shower scene, and it's like
that was pretty good. I love that. Yeah,
right. And it's like the fact that everyone laughed. Like to me, that's the bonding. That's the like, see, we all get that joke. We all get it. And those are the moments that I love, where it's like it reminds us of our commonality and not our differences.
Yeah. Andrew, what did you think of the short film?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I went into it not knowing anything about it. I think Steven's the same way. But for me, it's what I was most surprised about, and this is not giving anything away, just the meta aspect of it all and the kind of, the toolbox of every single horror movie type of ism in there in a way. Like you said, you do have the final girl or in that aspect, but you have a different take on it. This kind of idea that how does a final girl live a normal life afterward? What would that look like? And this is just like a regular day in her life, but her regular days are also filled with, like you're saying, it's not somebody who's dealing with like really, really traumatic PTSD stuff, which is a way in which you could have gone. It could have been someone who was, traumatized, constantly scared, constantly all those things. But it's just the little bit of PTSD that I think exists in all of us is kind of in this film. You know what I mean? The paranoia, the general anxiety. I mean, obviously with this person, it's more so because of her life experiences, but I think that everyone is kind of dealing with some type of anxiety about something in their past, in the past of their lives, and the film kind of plays on that. Also, yeah, it was really just overall, well shot with certain homages and all that cool stuff. Yeah, it's relatively short, and I want people to, if those of you who get to see it eventually, go into it with the expectations of with all of that in mind. It's kind of not so much about what's going on in it, but what it's showing and depicting is fascinating. And
yeah, and I think I mean it's the common again, it's the commonality, right? It's about we're not trying to fix anything. I'm not trying to offer a solution to any of these problems in 13 minutes. I'm just trying to offer a common experience, as you said, Andrew. It's like, man, what would I be like if I went through this? How would I deal with going out to see, movie night with my friends if I had gone through that? So I think to me, it's not necessarily even about the outcome of the short film. It's about the people watching it getting the joke, and that I think
Yeah.
is the biggest drive for me.
Yeah. So is there any talks yet of any way to kind of get it out there for people yet, or?
I mean, I think again, Chris Jarowski's he's the guru on this. I mean,
Yeah.
I would be lost without him. He's just so good at figuring out where to go, who to go to, what to do next, what order. And I think that, you know, the plan is to run out the festival clock where there's still a few coming up in 2023 and early 2024. You know, if we can get one or two, you know, feathers in our cap with a bigger one, then yeah, then I think once we've sort of spent that, then we'll look at a way to monetize it and, you know, get it. I don't know. I mean, that's gonna be the next learning curve for me as a filmmaker is what do I do with the short film in the streaming age in post strike, and how will that work? And I have no idea, but I definitely want to get it out there, but, you know, and not to dangle a carrot, but the part of the other reason for this and the reason for including Nathan in it was to keep the drumbeat of Leslie Vernon alive, because, you know, I always say we're like Charlie Brown, we're like Lucy Van Pelt pulling the football away, because we keep saying sequel, 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 and then it just doesn't happen in 20 years. But we haven't given up as filmmakers. You know, I have not given up on. I know the story I want to tell. Scott wants to direct it. Nathan wants to act it. Like, we're not done with Leslie Vernon. And so anything we can do to things like this, where we get to talk about Leslie Vernon again, if that can get 1,000 more people saying, okay, if something happens, I'll be there. Like, that's absolutely 100% why I'm doing this.
Well,
yeah, and you mentioned that you were going to, you know, a horror convention. I'm pretty sure this, you know, that's another way I see a lot of people learning about, not only learning about, but also celebrating movies and things that they love of the past. You know what I mean? I feel like Behind the Mask probably does very well at horror conventions. Like, I feel like the hardcore horror fans know of this movie, and then kind of the word spreads from there, or even just fans in general. I know I learned about this movie from Steven. Steven, you probably learned it from someone.
My friend Robert, who I did with the Film Club movie show, he's a hardcore horror guy, and he introduced me to Leslie Vernon, and yeah. Since then, I'm so glad it's part of my collection. Of course, we do have the Shout. Both of us have the Shout Factory release of Behind the Mask.
Yeah, we do have it. So for those of you listening and watching, like, this is the way it's available currently is a collector's edition through Shout Factory, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, with a bunch of special features on here, including stuff featuring you.
David. I think it's Scream Factory, I think. Is it
Scream Factory Shout? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think, you know, to be able to appear with Nathan and Angela, you know, to sort of answer your question, Stephen, you know, the attention that I'm getting from Wait For It is there a feature film of Wait For It? No, there's not. I mean, I sure I could come up with a story for Darcy Van Doren. I know what happened to her in my head, but there's a long way from having the idea as a screenwriter to a 110-page script. But I don't feel the same passion that I do. The attention that we're getting for Wait For It, we're sort of, knock on wood, but we're arm wrestling that to, like, no, there's not a feature film from Wait For It, but if you're that interested in it, what about you delve into the Leslie Vernon universe, which is a much bigger fan base. So we're trying to sort of judo maneuver that type of a situation, and hopefully get the only thing that people ever ask Nathan or me or Angela about at festivals or signings is there ever going to be another Leslie Vernon story? And I feel an obligation. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. I feel an obligation to get that story out there, and I absolutely am doing everything I can to get the what is essentially the third Leslie Vernon story out there.
Yeah. I did want to ask about the comic book situation, because I'm pretty sure people listening probably want to know where they can get it, if it's still available online somewhere.
It's hard to get it, but you can. It's there's a it's a website. It's called Vernon's Farmhouse. I want to say it's maybe if somebody can check it in. It's Vernon's plural farmhouse.com. And it's, unfortunately at this point, it's a 6 issues just bound into one anthology.
Yeah.
Like the
it's
omnibus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like a signed copy. You know, $75, I think, and you get all 6, and it's signed by Scott Glosserman. Because Scott is Glen Echo Entertainment, and Glen Echo Entertainment is the home of Leslie Vernon.
Yeah.
So all roads lead through Glen Echo.
I haven't lived there for most of my life, but I am from Baltimore, Maryland. So there is a I feel connected to
right.
this story. I feel like I need to I know it's shot in Oregon. I know the movie's shot in Oregon,
Yep.
but
but it's supposed to be set in kind of an innocuous northeastern town. So
yeah.
But so the omnibus is available at vernonsfarmhouse.com. And I think that ultimately, hopefully we get some traction, and then maybe there's a way to do like we've been idly daydreaming about doing like a stop motion, kind of like almost animate the graphic novel type of a thing to get some more, to get that. But the story is canon. So absolutely, if people are Leslie Vernon fans, try to get your hands on the comic and you'll know what would happen in the third story.
Yeah, I was going to say, so is the idea for what you do next kind of like building off of what you did in that comic?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it was one of them things is back when the comic was coming out, I think my friend Robert got them, but I wasn't able to get it at the time. I didn't have the money to help to get that. But yeah, I think I'm going to definitely get the omnibus then. Now that you're saying that it's got a place that you can still get it. So I'll be excited to learn what happened then, because I never got a chance to read it. So
yeah, I mean, that's sort of like Halloween 2 type territory where it's a little bit closer to the original. Where we go from here is, the metaphor is what's happened in the intervening 15 years since
you got to do the Halloween H2O, 20
yeah, or more Halloween kills, like Halloween ends, Halloween kills, Halloween ends. That trilogy to me is really that what David Gordon Green and Danny McBride did, like that to me, I'm sold. Like that's how I would like to end, but that's how I would like to not end, but that's the direction I would like to see like Leslie and Taylor's story go.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of bring, I guess, transitioning into this idea, just kind of your genuine influences when it came to the story for Leslie Vernon. Did you grow up watching all of those classic, you name dropped all of them in Behind the Mask with Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger, all these kind of stuff. Was that the bedrock of kind of your love of horror?
Yeah, I mean, Halloween far and away. Like, distant second would be Friday the 13th and Nightmare. But I think, and I even before that, I was a sucker for Dracula, Frankenstein. I think I accidentally started watching The Shining when I was way too young, and it was just absolutely traumatized me. But I think Halloween's the one where that was the first sort of like, I'm like, okay, this is something I'm going to watch again. Like, I looked forward to Halloween to watch that movie. And I think that's the bigger influence. And when I was writing Behind the Mask, the story I always tell is that I was living in California. I had just moved there recently to chase the screenwriting dream, and had a conversation with my dad. And he was like, how's it going out there? And that's sort of thinly veiled, like, when are you going to give up on this dream and move back to Wisconsin and get a real job? And I said, that's pretty good. And got some stuff in the fire. And I got off the phone, and it was sort of questioning, wow, what am I doing with my life? Is this the right thing? And Halloween was playing. It's like my comfort food. So it's playing in the background, and I doze off. And as I'm dozing off, I'm like, I wonder if Michael Myers ever had a moment of doubt. Like, did he ever wonder if he was making the right choices with his life? Maybe he should have been an insurance salesman. And I just had this funny image of like, what would those guys do? Like, what does Jason do on Saturday the 14th? Like, how does he get by until the next Friday the 13th? And I just had this funny idea of this up and coming slasher killer who's struggling to make it in his art, which is exactly what I was going through as a writer, which what Nathan was going through as an actor, which was what Scott was going through as a director. And the metaphor just bloomed beautifully. So it was a combination of Halloween and me struggling to make it in a career, in a profession, which is artistic and not typically, quote unquote, considered a real job.
Yeah. That was one facet of Leslie Vernon that I kind of stuck to a lot. And it was actually something that I was going to actually talk to you about. I was like, would you explore this in a sequel maybe? But like just the idea that Leslie Vernon, there's a part in the film where they talk about with Scott Wilson's character about like the difference between slashers back in the day and slashers now, where slashers back in the day were about quantity. They were about like killing as many people until, somebody showed up to try to stop you. But in this case, it's all about prep now. The more modern killers
you
are
got to make it
prepping.
more elaborate. You got to make it more special, more
The story, the
nuanced.
legend is like, something that you have to like fabricate in a way. You have to like build it up. And it's like, I thought it would be interesting to explore the idea of, him coming maybe in contact with one of them old school type of killers,
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, what Eugene is lambasting is, it used to be, it wasn't about the killer.
Yeah.
And that what happened in the 80s was, in the 90s, the killers became the heroes.
Yeah.
Which is really weird. It became about Jason and Freddy and Mike, right? It wasn't about just another hit and run of a slumber party massacre or sorority house massacre or whatever. It became about the killers, and and so what Eugene, in the context of the meta, is lambasting is, man, they changed it. They made it about themselves, not about the number of jobs they could do. Yeah. And I think that's very much what happened, and so that is definitely something I want to explore in the third part.
Cool.
That is interesting, just because it almost feels like, the characters became larger than the movies themselves, which also goes into kind of the idea we were talking about earlier with corporatizing, or corporations trying to sell a product versus, the movie itself. And I feel like that happened a lot when it came to like just the changing of the names of the franchises. Like I was just recently, because we talked about the Child's Play franchise. At one point, they stopped calling them Child's Play movies. Now they're Chucky. You know what I mean? Because the character is Chucky. You know what I mean? With the same thing with Friday the 13th. They changed it to, Jason Goes to Hell, or or something like that, or Freddy versus Jason, selling the characters and not so much the movies.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was thinking about. I mean, I don't have really details in my mind yet, but like you say Freddy versus Jason, and I think about that for Leslie Vernon in some sequel, like where he meets another killer and he has to like the philosophies.
Well, I will leave you with this. I do have to jump off, unfortunately, but I will leave you. I'll leave you with this, and I will say that you're close. But I think that what Nathan and I really want to explore more than that is that Nathan, Leslie Vernon, as a purist, he's a disciple of Eugene. He's a disciple of the old school. He's about the work. He's not about making it about himself. Exactly. And I think what we're going to explore is is Leslie just sort of being aghast at how far the culture, the job, the do has drifted into the ego of the killers, and how far from what Eugene would say is the job is to be a counterpart to good. The job is to be evil, to give people an anchor to fight against.
There's an integrity to it a little bit.
So Leslie's a little aghast that that even Leslie is becoming something of a hero. He's like, his attitude is, I didn't do this to be cheered. I did this to be feared, and it's become twisted. And so his struggle has more to do with that than wanting to pair up or do a mashup or a duet, if that makes sense.
I love it, man.
That's about all I can. That's where my mind's at right now.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that little bit of tidbit about what you're thinking about with the future of Leslie Vernon. So
that's breaking news.
Yes, we got it. This is gonna spread. We're gonna spread it now. We got to definitely get it. It's gonna be in the title. New Leslie Vernon sequel information.
I know.
So,
run with that.
Yeah, but I appreciate you with your time, man, and talking with us, and we hope everything moving forward, gets pushed, and of course just the writing in general, just writers with the strikes and everything, hopefully everything starts to smooth out for you guys and you get the pay you deserve and all that stuff. And
I think we're doing well there. I want to see the actors. I want everyone stand strong and support the talent that you love. They have every right to make a living doing this as well. So, but I always want to reiterate again, I mean it from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of Scott Glosserman and Nathan, thank you guys. It's the websites and the blogs and the fan sites like you guys that have kept Leslie Vernon's story alive and have made him what he is. 100%. We've gotten no help from any studio, any large enterprise, everything that is Leslie Vernon is entirely because of the fans, and we know that every single day, and we appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that, man, and we'll keep pushing. We'll keep pushing, try to keep it alive, man, and good luck moving forward. And we'll, anytime we can help, talking about anything else again, please let's do it.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it, man. Well, David J Stieve's guys, the writer, director of Wait For It. Hopefully, you guys will get your eyeballs in that sometime soon, and you have a good rest of your night, man.
All right, take care, fellas.